Hello, and welcome back to the iRacing How-To series. In this episode, we'll be discussing the iRacing weather system and how to set up weather in your sessions. The iRacing weather system is built from the ground up to mimic real-world weather patterns and provide dynamic racing environments. These environments can be created for any custom-hosted, AI, and test sessions. In the iRacing UI, click on Test Drive and select the Weather tab on the right. There are three options shown in the drop-down menu, labeled Static Weather, Forecasted Weather, and Timeline Editor. Static Weather generates weather conditions that stay exactly the same throughout a session. You can select the cloud coverage, track moisture, temperature, wind speed, and humidity for the session. Selecting no track moisture will produce a dry track. Any further level of track moisture will produce rain effects and a wet track, but note that because the conditions are static, track moisture levels won't change during your session. For example, if you set a heavy track moisture level, then it will replicate the conditions of heavy rain. A wet track lowers the total available grip and can cause hydroplaning, forcing drivers off the ideal rubbered-in racing line. Forecasted weather creates a dynamic weather environment. You can edit the forecast's cloud coverage, chance of rain, temperature, wind, and fog. Under View Forecast, two graphs are generated based on your forecast settings that display the expected temperature and precipitation. Don't like the results? You can regenerate forecasts based on your current settings to get a different result. The Timeline Editor puts the power of Jupiter in your hands and allows you to customize the exact timing of each weather condition. Select Timeline Editor and then click on Launch Timeline Editor. Your practice session will be displayed on the timeline, along with a button to add weather conditions. To place your first keyframe, click on Add Conditions and select a weather state. To add another keyframe, click on the plus icon on the left or right. To delete or split a keyframe, click on the icon and navigate to the bottom of the Edit Keyframe list. Let's say you want the practice session to start with clear skies and then progress to heavy rain. We can adjust how long the weather state lasts by dragging the bar between each keyframe. Your sessions are color-coded at the bottom, so as you drag, you can easily see how long each weather event lasts. You can add as many weather states as you like, but note that each weather event has a minimum duration of 15 minutes. Directly below the timeline, there are additional options to adjust temperature, wind speed, and wind direction. Once you're done, click Submit Timeline in the bottom right to continue, and Test Drive to head out on track. Once you're loaded in Sim, navigate to the Weather tab in the bottom left corner. Here, you will find the weather radar and forecast. The radar displays a loopable feed of the current weather conditions. If you want to show the radar but hide the Weather tab, click on Show Radar pop-out before closing the tab. Navigate to the Options tab in the top right, and then click Control. Under In-Car Systems, set keybinds for your windshield wipers at the bottom. Trigger windshield wipers are for a single swipe. Toggle windshield wipers are for them to stay on or off. There's also an option to make your windshield wipers wipe automatically. Select Auto Wipers under Driving Aids on the Drive tab to do so. One last very important thing before you head out on track. If it's raining, you'll want to make sure you change your tires from dry to wet. Head to the Garage tab and make the selection. There are also baseline wet setups for each rain-ready car, which default to wet tires. Once you're in car, press the F11 key to bring up the forecast black box. With this box enabled, you can view the current forecast and request weather updates from your spotter. You're now ready to race in the rain. For more information on the iRacing weather system, visit our dedicated weather page linked in this video's description.
A mix of old and new. The freshly implemented and the classic of the sim takes center stage at one of the most legendary circuits in the real and virtual world. We're live from the Autodromo Nazionale Monza. We bring you a doubleheader of the Super Formula Lights and the Proto GT Thrustmaster Challenge for the April 2024 edition of iRacing Happy Hour. We are so glad to welcome you to our coverage on iRacing this afternoon, where alongside Joey Atterbury and Keenan Kusan in the booth, I'm Kenneth Bueno. Joey, we'll start with you. We've got two very distinct series on our hands for this afternoon's action: Super Formula Lights and then the Proto GT series. Just a mix of what's been recently implemented in the sim and what's been on the sim for a very long time and regarded, beloved by many on the sim. It's going to be a lot of fun to see both of these series on display today.
And we are having two races, starting out with those Super Formula Lights with those open wheel cars here at Monza. And then, like you said, going to that Proto GT class where we're going to see both a combination of prototypes and those older GT cars. I can't wait for the sights and sounds, but it is all going to be conquering this Italian track that is so fast that so many people know very, very well. How deep can you take it on the brakes today? And are the elbows actually going to come out around that parabolica?
A track where you got to carry a lot of momentum. We'll dive into those details in just several moments. But Keenan, to toss to you about the way that iRacing is able to bring in not only the classic from the early days in the sim, but the new cars, the new tracks, and everything that's been implemented over the last several years through all of the seasons. We know that the Season 2 update was one of the biggest in the sim's history, including the Super Formula Lights car that we get to see first.
Yeah, this has been one of the most popular cars since that Season 2 update. It's been really popular along the open wheel road racing faithful. I know I have a lot of friends who have gotten it since the Week 13 update, and they have not gotten out of this car, and they're absolutely loving it. And as you said, a nice treat. We get a brand new car to the service and some stuff that's been around for a long time. So if you're watching this Formula Lights race, please stick around and come back with the Proto GT stuff, because as Joey said too, some of the best sights and sounds in the sim, bar none.
We're going to be displaying that all this afternoon. That's what makes iRacing Happy Hour so much fun. Let's dive into what Season 2 is all about. The Super Formula Lights, of course, one of the marquee features of the update. But the biggest point of conversation was rain, adding the new iRacing weather system, bringing in Dynamic Sky, the Dirt Micro Sprint. You had Portimao and a bunch of other tracks added to the sim. If you want to check out all of the details to the very exciting iRacing Season 2 update, you can scan that QR code on the bottom right of your screen. There's Misano. Beautiful look at that circuit that was also recently implemented. Rain has taken a lot of people by storm, literally and figuratively. It's been so much fun to watch. And Joey, I mean, this is, again, a super hyped build. So many drivers on the sim and so many of us here in the booth and iRacing production have been looking forward to this update. So many beautiful visuals, so many great cars, so many fantastic circuits. You pack them all into one. You get a really innovative build that it's going to be exciting sim racers from now until the future.
Well, rain has been that hot topic in iRacing here for the last couple months. And you're right, here with this new build, you know, you've got Portimao, you've got the Super Formula Lights, you've got more than just the rain out there. So, yeah, if you want to get wet, you sure can here in iRacing, but there is also tons more. And it is also coming to the surface in the near future with even more updates. That's what iRacing is known for. Keep those content flowing.
Hey, Keenan, you were one of those drivers to test out rain when it first came out. You were going on Twitch live stream. I can imagine it was so much fun testing all the different combos that were available in the rain.
Man, it's like playing iRacing for the first time all over again. I'm sure some of us out there have experienced rain in sims before and had an idea of what to expect, and it was so far beyond in detail anything that I've ever felt in my own hands, aside from possibly a real racetrack. Having to find the dry line, having to find the dry line on every lap as the track is drying. Every single turn is different. Every single lap is different. The bigger tracks, like the Nürburgring, you can have a totally dry section in one part of the track and a totally soaked section in another. Luckily for our Super Formula Lights drivers today, the forecast is clear here in Italy. There doesn't seem to be any precipitation, but again, something I thought I was going to figure out in like maybe a day or 2 days. I was pretty sure I drove every day of Week 13, and I did not get any better in the rain at all. So it's been an awesome experience. It's been a lot of fun to try and learn basically everything all over again. A little frustrating, but it's been a really fun challenge.
been so much fun to watch everybody in the sim take on Rain, the professionals and the newbies alike. It's been awesome to see how Rain is implemented in the sim and how much the developers had to work on it, how much reward they're feeling now just because of what the feedback has been from not only the real world drivers, but everyone in the sim that's gotten to try Rain for the very first time. Now, you said that, Keenan, we will not have any chance of a storm brewing. Thankfully for these guys, they won't have to deal with a bit of rain racing, but they will still have to deal with a pretty tricky Monza circuit with this Super Formula Lights car. We'll take a look at all the drivers that are currently taking their qualifying times. It's about 8-minute qual with about 2 laps on tap for these drivers, so should be ample opportunity throughout this circuit for them to get a pretty good lap in. And Joey, it's pretty tough to get a lap in with a lot of other cars in the service here at Monza. It's a really fast-paced track. You have to carry a lot of momentum. What's the key for these drivers in qualifying with this car that carries a lot of downforce and doesn't have that much power?
I think it's all about track position. That's the mentality that you have to approach qualifying, because here at Monza, the further forward you are, especially going into that first chicane, it is so crucial as we get a look exactly at what makes up Monza. 3.6 miles in length, 11 turns long, and I was just mentioning that very first chicane, it is right there, right after that long straightaway, so you better be confident on the brakes there. You also have to know when to roll onto that throttle. As we take a look at the rest of the track, you got a couple more quick chicanes, the Lesmo 1 and 2 in there, but the last turn, the Parabolica, you better be ready on that last lap, because if there's anybody behind you drafting down that short chute straightaway, they're going to try to over-under, they're going to try to dive into the brake zones. Like I said, it is a fast place. You better be confident on the brakes, and those chicanes, they are tricky here.
Watch for that last corner, Parabolica. When drivers get a good run off the corner, they can carry that all the way to the entrance of turn 1, and then a right-hander in the first part of that chicane to take you through the rest of the circuit. This is the race format for our first race of iRacing Happy Hour this afternoon. We go 30 minutes with these Super Formula Lights cars. This is the second tier machine to the Super Formula Toyota and Honda that was implemented in the sim not too long ago. If you get into a crash, well, that's too bad. You will be able to repair the car, but you won't get a quickie to get a fast repair. Race eligibility, got to be at least a C class to race in this series. We'll be ready for a lot of action. 18 total laps over the 30 minutes we have from Monza. Let's take a look at your starting grid and bring you trackside, where on the front row is Turn Racing Grand Prix iRacing Series driver Jacob Reed in the 1 machine. He'll line it up on pole with Mike Spans to his outside in the front row. All of them, of course, going to be staggered. Nicholas Westerman will be on the inside of row number 2. He's from 3rd. Javier Perez will drive from the 4th spot. Dean Ferron will be inside the top 5. And rounding out your top 6, Joey, Michael Jeffries in the 10.
Then we have Thibaut Robillard here in 7th. Casper Hansen lining up in 8th. Sock Willems here in 9th. Max Voss in 10th. Tobias Yeomans here in 13th. And then rounding out page number 2 is Joseph Lucas in 12th. Keenan.
And towards the back of the grid, you have Juan Vasquez, John Rossi will be running out row number 7, Make Schultz and Emerson Estrella in row 8. David Whitehouse and Lee Holmes will be rounding out the 9th row towards the back of the grid.
Back in 19th, you'll find Adrian Champroy. Gabriel Moral will be on his outside in row 10. Carlos Cabral inside row 11 with Jeffrey Langarak in the 7 machine on his outside. Then Joey Zarcos, Rafa Serna in the 13 will be on the outside there. Back to row 12, and here are the final 3 drivers to take us all the way through the grid. Alex O'Shea in the 15, Juan Argueso in the number 19, James Elston to round out shotgun of our 27 car field from Monza. The first of 2 races in iRacing Happy Hour is underway. Green flag in the air from Monza. Jacob Reed with a good start in the chase to turn 1. Mike Spans and Nicholas Westman will challenge into the first corner, side by side for the lead. Reed will have the advantage off the first chicane, Joey.
It's all about putting the power down. If you've got the track position, the rest of the field is going to flow through the first chicane, and knock on wood, I don't see any cars turned around. So now it's to this long sweeping turn 3, accelerate up through the gears to the next set of chicanes.
Got to make sure that you keep these cars clean. We see a bit of side-by-side action. This one is going to be for 5th place. Casper Hansen making the move immediately on Don Ferron in the 3 car. Gets through with the 2nd chicane. Now through the pair of Lesmo turns. Both of them right-handers and both of them with equally different amounts of angles that you can take into the corner. You carry a lot of speed, Keenan, with these Super Formula Lights cars. Again, they don't have a lot of power, but they have a lot of downforce on hand. Car loose there out of the corner, but it's all about how you can carry all that speed to a very fast Ascari chicane.
Ton of momentum based in these cars. If you've driven the F4s, it's very, very similar, just more downforce. Don't think because they have a little 3-cylinder in these cars are slow either. 150, 160 miles an hour. We've got a 1 car in the grass. Again, pretty clean start. I've never seen, oh, we have 1 car around as well. That's Toby Yeomans in the 22. Gonna be, I think everyone's just gonna make it through a huge pack of cars getting through there. But just about to say commentators curse. When have you last seen a Monza start that clean? But one casualty there, I don't think is too bad as we head into lap 2, and they're still fighting pretty hard here.
Honestly, not really. It's been crazy to see everyone get through this clean, but really good look into the first several chicanes, and most of the drivers being able to hold on to it without banging wheels all that much. A look on board from the left side of Mike Spann's number 2 machine. Of course, these sessions are rated by the iRating you have, so 1 all the way down to 27 is going to be how these drivers line up on iRating. Jacob Reed is a former Pro World Championship driver on the open wheel side of things. No surprise to see him up front. We know that number 2 car, though, is keeping tabs with him and might provide a threat as we are the first several minutes down here from Monza. We'll see a lot of separation, Joey, throughout this race, but that's exactly how things are going to go. These road courses always provide for driver versus track. You don't often see the driver versus driver side of things. It's always fun to watch, but it's about how you handle the track with these cars over a 30-minute stint.
And with the lower horsepower in terms of a Formula car, we're going to see a lot of drafting today. And if these front 2 can break that draft to 3rd place, it's going to spell trouble for everybody in that 3rd, 4th, 5th train, because these 2 can just kind of scamper off down the road. Now, Mike Spans is keeping our leader, Jacob Reed, honest, and that's exactly what everybody else wants to see. If these 2 start to battle, it'll actually slow them down. But it's going to be about drafting today, and we're already seeing that move for 3rd place get made because they don't want to see these front 2 leaders run away.
Nicholas Westman, who started 3rd, back into 3rd, pulled the trigger entering the final corner, and he's up into that top 3 spot with Javier Perez right behind him in the 4 car. Here's a nice battle at around the top 12 on back. Lee Holmes leading this group of John Rossignon. Right behind him, Joey Zarkos, who started this race pretty deep in this field back in 23rd, who's looking to get up through the top 15 as it stands. The largest pack of cars that we're seeing, and how about this? 3 wide action to turn 1.
John Rossignol to the inside. Who's going to make it stick? John comes over just a little bit. I think 2 in 1 going into the first chicane here at Monza. John Rossignol is going to take Lee Holmes and Joseph Lucas's lunch money and move up into the 11th spot, 1 position away from that top 10. But they're not done yet. Right behind him, Joseph Lucas still trying to get the pass he was trying to make in the first place done over Lee Holmes. He's going to have the inside look here into the 2nd set of chicanes.
Looking for highway robbery at the entrance of 1 as there were 3 abreast, able to keep it all collected, and Lucas is able to hold on over Lee Holmes, and all of that pressure moved the 21 car up to 12th place, although a little bit more separation has occurred up in front of this group. And this is what's so much fun about these road course races, specifically with these cars, Joey, because you have to carry so much momentum and because you're so dependent on the draft. One mistake means everyone is filling up that rear view mirror, which makes it spicy for us.
Exactly. If you poke your nose to the inside and you don't get that move done, well, guess what? Somebody's going to occupy that space that you just made vacant. So you just have to watch in front as well as behind to the sides, as I believe that was John Rossignol. Keenan, you were making this comment that he just made his way up, made those passes, but unfortunately he now finds himself in the gravel.
The classic, oh yeah, oh no, into the fence. It's so easy to do. The curbs are so high here, and these are little cars. They're not big GT cars that can handle slamming off the curbs there in Ascari. I think he just got a little bit too bumpy, and then as soon as we looked up from watching that battle, he was in the fence. So unfortunately, that is going to be it. I think for John Rossignol, I think I saw a wheel loose there, but unfortunate to see the dude go 3 wide into 1, and then that's how his race is over. Maybe we'll see him in the Proto GT race after. Who knows?
just a trade-off there. You make the move and you get the rewards, but all of a sudden, one tiny mistake can bobble the car, and as soon as those tires gripped, it was gone from there, and Ascari went for that spin. We've got a side-by-side battle for P5. This is the look at the run up front between Jacob Reed and Mike Spans. They've been nose to tail basically since the drop of the green flag in this race over the first 6 minutes, and really no pressure from anyone behind them. Our best battle is inside the top 5 with Dan Ferron and Casper Hansen going at it, and blow for blow through the Lesmos. Casper Hansen gets into the gravel. A look at Reed still leading this race. We'll see if we can get a replay of what exactly happened earlier in this race. Joey, we did have 2 incidents, one at lap number 1 and then this one with Rossignol.
Yeah, I believe what we're going to get is the number 17 of Rossignol. So this is going into that Ascari chicane. This is the 3rd chicane on the racetrack, and we got a lot of curbs on the inside. Let's see. Yeah, he jumps over those apex curbs, and a hard impact on driver's left. As soon as you jump over those curbs, it really upsets the car, not only the suspension, but even the aerodynamics on this, and then you are just along for the ride.
And we just had another car have the same problem as Rossignol. Max Voss in his machine did the same thing that Rossignol did, went into that left side curbing, entering Ascari. The car just hopped and got out of control, was not able to save it. I think was able to continue. Not that much damage to Voss's number 9 machine, but he's going to fall back to 17th. A huge plummet here. Watch this monumental pack. Once again, 3 abreast momentarily. Back to 2 wide action. The chase for turn 1 has been the topic of conversation. A 4th car in it. 3 wide into the braking zone. All the way to the inside is Jeffrey Langerak in the 7. He pushes through to 10th.
Lee Holmes and Joseph Lucas are just trying to have their own battle, and they keep getting usurped by other people. That's the 2nd time that they've just tried to go too wide into a corner, minding their own business, and a 3rd player has joined the party. It looks like it might even happen again with Joey Zarkos. Look at it, send it in the middle, 3 wide. That is just enough room. What a move from Joey Zarkos, getting the job done and moving up into 11th position, as Lee Holmes and Joseph Lucas are still destined to fight forever here.
Oh my, split the difference and got paid tenfold. Joey Sarkos with a great pass. And mind you, Joey, he's moved up 12 spots since the drop of the green started back in 23rd. Car number 8 is pushing. He's working hard. Lee Holmes on board look from the 14, who now has to catch up to Zarkos. I think just got blindsided there at the entry to the 2nd pair of chicanes.
Zarkos took both of those drivers by complete surprise, splitting them up through the middle, and it is so cool to see this type of racing here on this racetrack. Yes, the draft is powerful, and it happens in a few different areas. It's not just on the front straightaway, but it's all over this racetrack, and even if you're in the middle of the pack, you can have some good racing. And I was going to make the comment to everybody, Kenneth, this is a very interesting battle up front. The number 2 car in 2nd place, Mike Spans, he is not challenging Jacob Reed at all. All they want to do is turn clean laps, because if they continue to do that, then they can fight it out amongst themselves at the end, rather than include those 3rd and 4th place cars that are running the identical lap times but can't close in because they're too far away from the draft.
You're right. I noticed that too, just seeing the fact that Mike Spans gets all of these runs down the straightaways, specifically right before Parabolica, and doesn't even go to the inside, doesn't even try that move. He knows better than to go side by side and make it an issue when 3rd and 4th, you're looking at right now Javier Perez and Nicholas Westman. They've been going back and forth throughout the entirety in the first 10 minutes of this iRacing Happy Hour session from Monza. Certainly for Spans and Reed, they don't want Perez and Westman to join the fight, because if they were watching our broadcast a little earlier, they would see what the result would be. 3, maybe 4 wide down the straightaways.
As you see here, Perez going defensive, I think just not getting the message. The only hope of this 3rd and 4th position vehicles is if they just get together, maybe a little swap drafting, maybe, on the front straight, but they have to get it figured out, start cracking in lap times. There's still lots of time left in this race. We still just have over 20 minutes left, but there is tons and tons of time if they just get together, get nose to tail, and figure this out and see if they can catch the leaders.
Here's Casper Hansen leading a group of Dan Ferron and Jack Williams in the 11. Look at the paint scheme on the 11. Was looking at him on the trading page side of things. These three going battle. And if you want to join battles like these and have a bunch of fun on the iRacing service, what are you waiting for? Log on to iRacing.com today to start your iRacing career. And that could be in a Pro World Championship or just for official series or leagues with friends. Battle for the lead decided, Joey. Mike spans the entry to turn 1. He had enough of being second fiddle. He wants to man the charge. Goes right past Jacob Reed, and he's got the lead 11 minutes in.
It was just straightforward on the front straightaway there, and Spans got around Jacob Reed, so it might just be, all right, I've sat back here, I've cooled down enough on my tire, I'm going to take the charge out here, and they're up to 2 seconds over Westman there in the 3rd position. So if Jacob Reed overheated his stuff just by trying to stay out front, I think that Mike Spans is looking like he's in a pretty good seat right now.
And it goes to the philosophy, Keenan, of making your decisions at the right times. We talked about how going side by side for a lengthy period of time isn't going to help their case when you've got 3rd and 4th not too far behind. But Mike Spans just took the initiative of going for the quick pass instead of trying to elongate the battle. Makes a quick run around Reed, and all of a sudden it's 1-2 again without losing that much time.
Yeah, and again... I'm sorry, Keenan. I was going to cut you off here. I was just going to say it's going to be really, really interesting just the way this front battle shakes out, just the way the two packs are kind of drafting right here. And if we're going to see Jacob Reed go back there and fight up against it, because I really thought that Mike Spans in the first half of the lap, he just had so much pace on it. And here's Jacob Reed fighting it back, but it's already grown 1.8 seconds. If Westman and Perez don't do something about it, if they don't start to work together, these two, they're just going to continue to skate off down the road here.
We've got our top 4 in tandem. Mike Spans, the race leader, an onboard look with Jacob Reed. We've given you all the visuals here from Monza over the first several minutes of this happy hour session. Let's turn up the sounds with iRacing Full Throttle. Beautiful sounds of these Super Formula lights circling this Monza circuit that's been oh so fun to watch for. This is the tandem from 1st and 2nd. Mike Spans, Jacob Reed. 3rd and 4th, Javier Perez and Nicholas Westman have been done fighting. They're just running nose to tail in the effort to get around these top 2, or at least have a shot at them with about, give or take, 10 laps to go, depending on how the time will figure itself out. And there's a look to the inside. Jacob Reed is going to take back the lead on the main straightaway before turn 1, and another change potentially for 3rd place. Westman going ahead of Perez.
Well, we're seeing some back and forth. It is no longer the 2x2 just holding station. The front 2 are trying to do that leapfrog drafting, especially down the front straightaway. Once Mike Spans got up in front, he was able to lay down a 41.4, but then Westman was able to counter it with a 41.4 as well. So I'm looking at the data. These 3rd and 4th place cars have gone from 1.8 seconds down to 1.4 seconds in that gap. We still have 15 minutes remaining. If they keep up just about a 1/10 of a second or lap, they can close that gap.
It seems as though them just switching back and forth isn't doing much for losing time. They're gaining time. Could be a 4-man fight before this is all said and done. Let's tell you about what's to upcome here on iRacing. We'll have a big session in May, the 17th through the 19th. Keenan, the Nürburgring 24. You mentioned that track in the green hell a little earlier on when you were talking about testing the rain feature on iRacing. The Nürburgring 24, not sure if that will have rain, but it will have excitement, that's for sure.
Yeah, nothing is more fun in the iRacing service than special events, whether that's Daytona, Spa, Sebring, or in this case, the Nürburgring 24. You got 4 different disciplines to choose from: Porsche Cup, GT3, GT4, and the touring car for 24 hours around the world's hardest racetrack. One of the most fun things you can do is gather up a group of friends, jump in a car you're all comfortable in, and see who can annoy each other the most over a 24-hour period. So if you haven't got your team together, you have about a month to get something together, and we'll see you the weekend of May 17th and 19th at the virtual Nürburgring here on the iRacing service.
Nürburgring is crazy. I've tried it many times through different games, including iRacing, and it's tough. It never gets easier. There are some drivers who can master it. Keenan, is it a track that you like or you hate? I feel like there's no in-between.
I like driving there. I don't like the idea of if I push a little bit too hard, I'm not only going to ruin my race, but my teammates' race and anybody behind me. It's basically a tarmac rally stage of how much do you dare push, because one mistake is your race over. Super unique racetrack. For whatever reason, you don't know the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Again, like it's basically one line through a lot of it. There's a lot of patience. It's such a unique venue, and it's the perfect place to host a 24-hour race, especially with that much traffic on the course.
We'll take a look at a replay on what happened between the 5-car of Carlos Cabral. It looks like he got into the 26 of James Elston, and we did see Cabral get into it with Joey Zarcos entering the first chicane. This is a pretty sizable pack of cars coming off the corner. This is off the second Lesmo. Bit of contact, Joey in a round. They go hard contact into the guardrail. 3 cars involved in this one.
It was all started in that first Lesmo. Everything got stacked up, and then we had about 5 cars arguing over the same spot on the racetrack, and you're right, about 3 of them didn't come out the other side. So have a few retirements from that one, but no matter where we are, I believe this is the battle for 6. We still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different battles on the racetrack that I see, not just the lead, but we got some stuff in the mid-pack, got stuff further back, so still a fantastic race with another 12.5 minutes remaining.
Just had a spinner as well behind Carlos Cabral, who I was just checking into from 13th. Adrian Champoy goes for a spin. He picks it all up. We're okay for the moment, and not that much the dramatic action on track anymore. Got a bunch of single file action, but this could be the best battle we see up until the end if we don't see the top 2 go at it. Keenan, you've got Jack Williams right in front of Casper Hansen, and Thibaut Robillard in the number 18 car right behind, and another side-by-side battle. They go into turn 1. I think it looks like turn 1 is probably the best place to make a pass because of the hard braking zones and the draft. It seems pretty easy to switch in front of a driver here.
Yeah, and again, these aren't necessarily slow cars. They're doing 150, 160 miles an hour on that front straight, but there's so much downforce. They're creating such a wake that it's just so much easier to set up a pass if you just get a good run on the parabolica and take your time. You might even be clear before you hit the first corner. As again, these are our leaders: Jacob Reed and Mike Spans, nose to tail. Again, I think the reason you do see the number 1 and number 2 car, those numbers being decided by iRating, just being patient. They know if they fight back and forth, that third place car, Nicholas Weissman, is starting to close the gap a little bit. And all he needs is, like Joey said a little bit earlier, just a couple of tenths, and then he'll start getting the draft off of Mike Spans, and then it will be a 4-car battle. So all these guys need to do in the front is just be patient. I think Jacob Reed and Mike Spans, especially, as you said as well, has a really good middle sector. There is no point of him racing the heck out of Jacob and then dragging them both back, unless he can do something like that swap draft and get the pass completely covered and move back onto the racing line before turn 1 even gets there. But as you also said, tons of battles all over the track. This car is so fun, man. You see Joseph Lucas and Lee Holmes still fighting. Yes, since lap 1, they're destined to be together forever, as it seems. But this car's been so popular since the update, and usually you'll see a big boost in new content. But everyone I've talked to that's been super into open wheel, and another thing we didn't talk about is that they split open wheel and sports car iRacing, which I think would be interesting to get into in the next session. But all my open wheel friends are like, nah, this is it. Like this is where it is now. I know a lot of friends who did F4, F3, have jumped over to the Super Formula and have not looked back. So that's just kind of the product you're going to get with these cars. Is really good fun racing, some hard fought battles, and as we have a side-by-side going into the second chicane.
That's Robillard in the 18, pressuring the 20 of Hansen. Just got the door shut, exiting the second chicane there, entering the first of the Lesmos here at Monza. Hansen holding on. That is for 7th place, and you make a really good point there, Keenan, about the different splits in iRating based on open wheel and Grand Touring GT cars, and also prototypes as well, depending on what class you run. And obviously we'll discuss that more with the Proto GT race a little later on this afternoon. But I mean, Joey, with these open wheel cars, this is the predecessor to the Super Formula Lights. You know, the Super Formulas rather, the main Super Formula car. When it was implemented into iRacing, all I saw was a lot of positive reviews. This car was very popular, especially the Asian side of things. A really big car internationally, a lot of fun to drive, has so much power. The lights only just adding to, I guess, the Super Formula lore, if you will, but it just adds to the fun of the racing.
Well, if you grew up watching racing, there's always ladder series. You know, you always got to start down at the bottom and then work your way all the way up to the big leagues. And that's exactly what the Super Formula ladder is. You know, you can start in the lights cars, and they're lower horsepower open wheel cars. That does not mean they are slow by any means. These cars that we're watching right now, 162 miles an hour. I'm seeing 163 by the time they hit the brake. So yes, they might be 3 cylinders and might be kind of on the bottom rung of the ladder, but you get into these cars, you get used to how they drive, and I think why they relate so well to so many people that join iRacing and hop into them, it's an extra big go-kart. So if you've ever driven a go-kart, whether it's a rental kart or a 125 car or whatever it may be, getting into one of these cars, it is very, very similar. It does exactly what you tell it to do. If you want to stop, if you want to go, well, guess what? The responsiveness is immediate. You can also control some of the slide angles because you're not doing 220 miles an hour around Indianapolis out here. So they're tons of fun. I think kind of the room for error is a little bit bigger than some of the faster open wheel cars, and that's one of the reasons why they're loved so much.
And it's been cool to watch today over the afternoon. To look on board from Jacob Reed, the race leader. There's Mike Spans right behind him. But one thing I noticed is Nicholas Westman has closed in the gap. He's under a second from the second place car in Spans. He's pulled away from Javier Perez. So Keenan, we might just have a 3-way fight for the race lead inside 8 minutes to go. While Spans and Reed have been conservatively running up front, Westman just tapped the go button, and here he is with a chance to win.
I think we're going to get a quick back look at the 10 machine. Michael Jeffries, before the battle for the lead heats up, you see Michael on the outside trying to hang on going into the first chicane. And just a little bit, it's so easy to do that with these are 3-cylinder turbos. So a lot of the power is up top, so you're coming out of the corner, you get into boost. They're little turbos, but turbos nonetheless. You get out of the corner, you get into boost. And sometimes, especially with this late in the race, the tires are hot. They're starting to wear in a little bit. It's just so easy to wrap that around. So the 10 going around, still okay. Car's not damaged, but in 14th position.
They're going to lose all that track position with only a couple laps left in this race. Give or take, we'll have 4 laps to go over what is a scheduled 18-lap race, 30-minute feature here from Monza. And there's a look again at your top 3. Just the easy mistakes, Joey, that can send you either around into a driver or just will force you to lose track position. We've seen that a lot, just those little singular mistakes. And I'd imagine in the Proto GT race we'll have a little later on today, we'll see a lot more of that between the classes and the faster and slower cars. Mistakes will be paramount in avoiding them to make sure you can at least have a shot at the front of the field.
And as the time runs out, right, the mistakes, even just a small one, it becomes more and more of an issue. That 3rd place car of Westman, he has been the fastest car on the racetrack. In fact, he laid down a 140.9, the only car in the 42nd bracket. So we're watching these front 2 very closely, and I expect a leapfrog right here on the front straightaway. So we're going to see Spans go around Jacob Reed for the lead. They need to leapfrog because Westman is the fastest of the 3.
Race lead up for auction in the entry to turn 1. Spans has it. He's won the bid. Jacob Reed will have to hang back and hopefully pray that Nicholas Westman doesn't catch up any further. The gap did balloon to about almost a second and a half, but it's now back to 1.2 as these 3 continue to run around. So Reed and Spans here, Keenan, have to be a little more careful. They've been switching back and forth throughout the entirety of this race, but you add a tertiary car into the mix, and all of a sudden, it's not a team game anymore. You've got a whole free-for-all on your hands with about 5.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, we're reaching the final 4 here, the Royal Rumble. It's about to be every man for himself real quick. Westman is on the charge. As Joey said, the fastest lap of the race so far. Mike and Jacob, the 1 and 2 machines, did put down some good lap times in the last lap, but they have to keep that up. One mistake, one side by side into a corner, Nicholas is right there. So if they have to keep picking their spots, they haven't dropped a foot aside yet. But with about 5 minutes left to go, if I had to guess, we'll probably have about 2 or 3 laps to go here. The time to fight is now. So Nicholas is back there just licking his chops, hoping these two dudes start going side by side, especially if they're in the corners.
Westman hoping to be the I Show Speed in this Logan Paul WrestleMania match. Hopefully not get RKO'd at the end of all of it. But nonetheless, Westman is in contention, does have a clear shot. But it's all about whether Reed and Spans go head-to-head before Westman can even make the decision. Here comes Reed. Retaliation to the inside, down the straightaway to the start-finish line. No real resistance from Spans, and Jacob Reed, Joey, takes the point with 4:22 left in this race.
I think we're going to see that all the way up until the final lap. We might see a little bit of posturing to start the final lap going into that turn 1 and 2 chicane, but I believe the move is probably going to be made coming out of the Ascari chicane, going into the Parabolica. And I'm sorry to report for those Nicholas Westman fans, he made a mistake that previous lap. He's fallen from that 1 second gap now to 2 seconds. That's a pretty big hill to climb when these front two have not made any sort of mistakes all race long.
It's going to push him back for 2 seconds. That's going to be really tough, especially as the time is winding down. We will come down to the final 2 laps here from Monza before we close out our first of 2 races on this iRacing Happy Hour. Be sure to stick around. We'll have the Proto GT Thrustmaster Challenge with the HPD ARX 01C. You've got the Aston Martin, the Ford GT2, and that beautiful Corvette C6R GT1. So stick around. We've got a lot more great racing to show you here on the iRacing platforms this afternoon. Gap has actually grown between Jacob Reed and Mike Spans. Of course, that should crunch down by the time they get off of this short straightaway to Parabolica. But Keenan, if you're Spans or Reed, you're behind on the last lap. When do you pull the trigger?
I mean, the start-finish line is pretty early in the straightaway here. We're going to just come up to it. You'll see it. It's right near this bridge. This pedestrian walkway, so you don't really want to wait too long and make the move on the start-finish straight. Something maybe in the back after Ascari going into Parabolica, but the ideal would be right here as Mike Spans trying to take a... No, actually, he gets on the brakes, goes off, so I think he's just waiting, biding his time. I don't think we'll see a major move now, Kenneth, until the last lap.
It's kind of like a super speedway in a sense, Joey. You got to pick and choose your moves because the draft is oh so important, and I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing a side-by-side photo finish between these two. It's going to be up for grabs. These two are running for just another official win. There really isn't anything else at stake. Peek at the outside by Spans entering the second chicane to no avail. Reed will hold on to the lead while Westman and Perez go side-by-side for third.
Yeah, Westman has continued to fall back, and now Perez is just all over the gearbox there. So we've got the lead battle on the top and the race for third there on that split screen. So Westman just trying to hang on to what is the last podium position. We've only got about a lap and a half left here, because as we cross the line this time by, Barney should hold that white flag out. I have a feeling all the posturing between the front two, we're about to see it ramp up.
Felt like a motorcade all race long, but now they're going to actually go blow for blow here. Reed is going to have the lead, exiting Ascari. Spans right behind him. Second car off into the grass through Ascari. That was Westman, and the fall from grace for the 6th car up to third, closing in on the leaders. A pair of mistakes, Keenan, might just take him out of a top 3 podium spot. Javier Perez is going to move on by as the battle for the lead continues to heat up. Final minute, white flag from Monza.
Yep, exact same thing that we've seen all race. Just a little bit too much of that sausage curve, and these are really high downforce single-seaters. They're not made to hit the curves, as Mike Spans is now going to try to make a move for the lead. He's going to go to the left-hand side of Jacob Reed. Not going to get clear before the corner, but he will have the inside of the second part of this chicane. Crowds, Spans onto the first curve. He's not going to get it done there. Side-by-side drag race out of the corner, and Jacob Reed retains the spot, but for how long?
It's a tough entry into turn 1. Credit to Mike Spans for holding on. He'll use the draft to swing up high to the left, almost to the grass. They almost touch wheels into the second chicane. Spans will have the better entry this time by, beats Reed in the braking zone. Mike Spans back to the point with 30 seconds left.
I think that this is okay for Jacob Reed. In my opinion, the move has got to come out of the Ascari chicane going into the Parabolica. In order to do that, you need to use the draft behind the leader. So can Mike Spans defend from Jacob Reed? We're heading down this long straightaway now, headed into that chicane for the final time, Kenneth.
Well, this is it. All down to the draft, and especially how you handle Ascari. A look on board from Spans. Reed peeks inside, backs out before they can go door to door, or rather side pod to side pod entering the corner. They come off cleanly. Spans will have the lead. Reed at peak of the draft. Down the final straightaway before Parabolica. Here comes Reed to the outside. On the final turn here at Monza, on this iRacing Happy Hour first race with the Super Formula Lights, we're going to have a classic to the finish. Reed and Spans side by side off the final corner. It's all about the drag race to the finish. Reed has led most of this race. Spans behind him to the flag and to the finish. Jacob Reed will have it. He beats Mike Spans barely at the start-finish line.
The interval of 0.043 seconds. Playing the draft game to a T. That race was in Jacob Reed's control almost the entire time. Really well played out, really well thought out. Great run off of the Ascari chicane, which is exactly what he needed. I was surprised to see him go for a move a little bit early. Again, these are open sets, so I figured, oh, maybe he's got a little bit more downforce on the car, or maybe he got a little bit less downforce on the car and trust it to pull away. But nope, played it perfect. Mike Spans just did not have the juice coming out of Parabolica, and by a nose cone, Jacob Reed is your winner here in the Formula C Super Formula Lights Open Series.
What a great finish between those two, back and forth all race long. We almost thought it would have been a three-way fight for the win, but even just two gives us a classic finish. Here's the rest of the field coming across Ascari, heading into the final corners. They're all going to finish. This is through the top 10 and top 15. All of them just going through these final corners. Adrian Champoy in the 23. This is Carlos Cabral in the number 5 car. We saw his mistake earlier on today, and he will have a top 15 finish as they come out of the final corner and cross the start-finish line. Great half an hour of racing. We've got another half hour to go with the Proto GT Thrustmaster Challenge. Joey, your thoughts after our first race of the day with this new Super Formula Lights car? It didn't disappoint.
No, it didn't. I absolutely loved it. It was a great way to kick off happy hour here. So what's better than some Formula cars doing a draft fest around Monza with a photo finish only by 0.04 of a second here, Kenneth, as we've got those official results.
There's a look at your overall results. Jacob Reed winning over Mike Spans barely. The rest of the field all the way through your top 27. Everyone who took this official session gave it all that they got, and we had a fantastic run all the way to the checkered flag. More iRacing Happy Hour next, but first let's hear from the Downshift Podcast and Tony Gardner.
All right, Kevin and I are back with friend of the show, multiple-time guest.
One of our top guests, I think,
One of our top guests. If you look at the Spreaker statistics.
Very popular, man.
President and CFO Tony Gardner taking time out of this incredibly busy week to sit down with us. Thanks for coming on, Tony.
Well, thanks for having me on the pod. I'm a big fan. I listen to every one of them.
Yeah, Tony seems to like coming on the podcast, and we kept saying we were going to bring him on, and then we didn't, and so he just went and did another interview without us. Just went around us.
That's right. He doesn't need us, so
he's got to get the messaging out there.
Thanks for coming on.
When somebody invites me, I usually show up. Just have to invite me.
Well, let's get into it. Big last few weeks for iRacing, last few months of iRacing have been huge, but culminating with the release a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, rain was the big item, the big feature development that we finally were able to put out to the membership. And Tony, that has had a significant impact on the business of iRacing, specifically the membership, right?
Yeah, we're really excited about that release and proud of it. You know, we worked for years on it. Some engineers were on it for years, other people just a few months, but it was a huge effort. And the reception has been, we knew it would be good, but it's been overwhelming how positive the reception to the feature has been. So we've really seen a spike in growth. Customer growth, and so it's been really exciting. So a lot of people, we noticed a lot of people that were members coming back to try it and really enjoying it. And it really, I think, demonstrates the iRacing brand, how realistic and how much we put into it, different from other games. So, where we modeled all the physical elements of rain and et cetera, et cetera. So it's really exciting, and we've got a little bit of tweaking to do now, but we're really happy how it all went.
Yeah, the reception from the community has been great, and the membership numbers have shown it. This week we eclipsed over 250,000 active accounts on iRacing, and I believe last night eclipsed 1 million total accounts, right?
Yeah, now we're over. We picked up another 5,000, so we're over 255,000 members already. We just went over 250 over the weekend, and yeah, we passed 1 million accounts over the history of iRacing. It took us 9.5 years. No, it took us 12.5 years to get the first 500,000 accounts, and then it's taken us 3.5 years to get the second 500,000 accounts. So you can see that we're growing a lot more in the last 3 years. So pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's nice to see, especially in this niche, to be able to have continued success and really growing, after what we were, thought was the COVID boom, and we didn't know on the backside of that whether we would have a dip, and we were able to accelerate and continue growing after that, as a testament to the amount of work that was put in by all of the developers, because we never rested on our laurels. We just doubled down on everything, put it back into the product, and tried to continually improve the product and even raise the bar rather than being complacent. So that's been really cool to see, and how all that was organized.
Yeah, I think we finished. I'll interrupt you. I think we finished COVID. Kind of depends what you define it as, with 180,000 members, and now we're up over 255,000 members. So a lot of game companies went backwards a little bit, even shrunk. So we've continued to grow. So really excited about it, and it's really about making the product better and listening to customers. That's what it's all about. It's not any fancy marketing messages or anything. You have to make a good product and keep improving it, and that's how you grow this business.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that growth isn't just in terms of customers and users, but the company's been growing huge, right? So to Greg's point and your point, we've been reinvesting. There's been, lots of additions to staff across the board in all different areas, things like that. So it's nice to see that.
Yeah, we've taken that growth and we've put it right back into the product by, doubling our staff in the last, 2 or 3 years. So really, it's all about talent and creating a culture. And we've hired some really talented people in the last, 3 or 4 years, and I think people are starting to see it. In fact, I don't think Rain. I know Rain wouldn't have been as good without some of the new people. Not to discount some of the people that have been here forever. We have some really smart people that have been here for so long. They're critical as well, but it's nice to have more bodies, smart people working on the product.
Well, let's stay on this for a second. From your perspective, with everything that's happened since COVID, so we go to a more remote workforce rather than just everybody being in the office. Plus, as you said, basically doubling the size of the staff. How do you approach the culture with all of those changes? Like, how do you maintain that?
Well, I think you really need a good, culture is a broad word, but a culture that where everyone's feeling like they're part of it and they're heard and they're accountable. You have to create that type of culture. But I think it's really important to have a really good structure, a management structure, a leadership structure, and I think we have that. And I think just creating a culture where people want to come to work every day and want to make the product better. We have a very passionate group, and we really encourage that. And I think it's just infectious. We have a lot of type A's that are just so passionate about this. I think it's infectious, and it really creates this great culture. We try to support that with really strong communication, but it is difficult. We're so many people. I think we have employees in about 8 different countries now, and in about 30 states. So it is difficult, sort of keeping communication. But we have a lot of meetings, but they're efficient meetings. We do a lot online, and And so it's been a challenge, but I think it's worked out really well for us.
It's also been a nice tempo change in the last, I guess, probably year. Anybody in the area going in on Thursdays, so we go into the office once a week, and actually get to see people. And sometimes I feel like you don't get maybe as much done off your regular checklist, but the collaboration, at least to the discussions that happen around the cafeteria or just walking over to somebody and chatting about it, that helps a lot too. And we're finding a little bit of that balance where you do get that in-person collaboration. So that's been really nice. Let's pivot over. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, the collaboration is really important, and that's how we work. And but you got to be careful of committees too, because the old saying is nobody ever built a statue of a committee. So at the end of the day, you need some, you got to get feedback from everybody, but then you have to, make a decision. There has to be a leader, and you can't. Sometimes when you start bartering, you start negotiating what should be done, then you end up with something less. So, you have to watch out for that too. Collaboration is great, but at the end of the day, you have to empower certain people to, to make good decisions. And I think we have a lot of those good people in place. Sorry to interrupt.
No, all good. So let's pivot a little bit. We're going to go over and we're going to talk about, one of the big acquisitions was bringing Monster Games on with iRacing and merging those two studios really together under the iRacing brand. And now with the announcement of the NASCAR 25 project for consoles, obviously is big news within the sim racing community. A lot of excitement of iRacing getting back to its roots. Let's talk about, how did this come about? Because this was a long time in the works.
Yeah, I could probably talk for an hour about it, but iRacing's had a license with NASCAR for, I don't know, 15 years, Kevin.
About 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I would guess, but we're on our fourth renewal of the license with them, and our license is exclusive for for a simulated racing game on PC, and we never took an interest in the console space because we didn't really have the capacity to build console games. So, but it was always in the back of our mind. We always wish we could, but we didn't want to restrict the license because it was important to NASCAR to obviously have console games, and the license is expensive. But it was always in the back of our mind. So, we were starting to talk about possibly building up our own console shop. But when the MGI studio became available, we jumped on that. It's a great studio. They've built NASCAR games, and while that was going on, we always kept in touch with NASCAR and motorsport games, saying, hey, we would like to get possibly a carve out or get the license, and just we kept talking to them over the years, and finally with motorsport games, it became available. NASCAR felt we were and the teams, the RTA felt we were the right partner, so it all just worked out in the end. And but it was years of discussion. It was really the dream, our dream license to get for a console product. So we're just really thrilled it came together. And it was quite a bit of negotiation, with all these different parties involved, motorsport games, NASCAR, and all the teams are all different entities that we had to figure this all out with. So it took a while, but it all worked out in the end, and we're really excited about it.
Let's talk about the development structure there. So many people have so many questions about, what we're going to do. There's such a responsibility to the community to really bring a quality product to the console space for NASCAR. How are you guys going about, the development structure for getting that product launched?
Well, the Monster Games Group that we acquired at the end of 2022, they're a great group and a really good core group based out of Minnesota. And what we've done is we've really added a lot of talent to that. Just like iRacing, we've added a lot of talent to that group. But it was important really for the iRacing brings a lot to the table too. And so we've been able to work with them integrate a lot of things with them, and so they're using a lot of our assets, a lot of our technology. In fact, they're going to be using all of our tracks and cars inside that game, just like the World of Outlaws game. They've created an integration so they can easily pull tracks and cars over from the iRacing platform. So from an art and model perspective, their physics is on a different architecture, but we're using a lot of the iRacing vehicle dynamics group and whatnot to, just like we do with the World of Outlaws game, to help them out. You know, they're even borrowing a couple of our engineers for months to do certain things. So it's really a team effort, but the MGI group is really good at building NASCAR games, and they're very creative, and so we're really letting them drive the ship here, but we're just supporting them any way we can to make the best NASCAR game that's ever built. So it's a team effort, but I like the fact that we have these synergies, these technical synergies that we can share back and forth. So it's really important. It saves a lot of time and it makes a better game.
Yeah, and I'm sure as we get closer to the launch of NASCAR 25, we'll talk more about it. And maybe we have an entire episode where we just, talk about the development process of that. But let's stay on licenses for a second, and let's pivot over to IndyCar. This was another one that was highly contentious in the community, how that whole situation went down over the past couple of years. And now it's come full circle. We've got IndyCar officially licensed back on iRacing. We're going to bring back the Indy 500 this year. We're incredibly excited about that. I was talking with Drew Adamson, one of our producer for all of our broadcasts yesterday, making some plans on that. But Tony, can you talk to me about, what a lot of people don't know about the IndyCar discussion is the dialogue stayed open the entire time. But yeah, can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, just like the NASCAR situation, Motorsport Games secured an exclusive with IndyCar. And so our license expired at the end of 2022. So we literally lost our license. And I think, I think IndyCar, if they had their druthers, would have rather kept iRacing in the fold. But, they made that decision, and somebody was going to do a dedicated IndyCar game for them. And they to do that, they required an exclusive. So I get why IndyCar made that decision. And I think Motorsport Games just bit off more than they could chew. They just started gobbling up all these exclusive licenses, and they didn't have the capacity to build all these games. So, that's how we ended up getting the NASCAR game back and the IndyCar game for that matter. But we kept in touch the whole time, all through 2023, trying to work this out. Motorsport Games was honestly, we talked to them a lot, and they were good to talk to, and I think they got it that the community wanted to see IndyCar on iRacing. So anyway, it ended up that they never got that game out, and they ended up losing that license. So we were able to, within a matter of days, once that happens, snag that license back to start this year 2000. So we lost the license for 2023, and we got it back for 2024. So I think the good news is that we grew a better appreciation for one another, IndyCar and iRacing, and I think we're stronger partners than we've ever been with them, and we have some more news coming about other things we're doing with them. So I think that's the good news, is the partnership became stronger because of the minor controversy that occurred.
Well, and that's the big word in this whole scenario is partnerships, and I think what a lot of these race organizers have started to understand is a partnership rather than it's not just iRacing as a vendor. Like, if working together, we are a great opportunity to engage their fan base, and an engaged fan base is a fan base that stays around. And whether it's through NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA has been a big tell. We've seen the direct correlations that they've noted between the how many people are engaging and watching and going to their races, especially the Daytona 24 is a great example. The partnership aspect is incredibly important. That's something that it's pretty cool to be a part of, and really proud to be a part of. Is growing
the FIA that you work with. Yeah, it's really important to us, and we do look at it as a partnership. and we're trying to always find more partners and become closer with our partners, because it's, we really believe that we're part of racing with a virtual arm of racing, so of the real world. So it's important to us.
All right, let's move along a little bit, and let's talk actually moving forward. So, obviously, as we've said, things are going well right now, but we are not resting on our laurels. And if anything, we're doubling down. And when you're looking ahead to the future, what pops in is the things that you think are, from your perspective, are the things that are important that we are beginning to look at and pursue further.
Well, I think we always want to, we have engineers that focused on certain things. They have a certain skill set. They know certain parts of the code base the best. But we always want to improve everything to do with iRacing. But we want to certainly keep making our physics and the driving better. That's important. You can always improve. So we're adding more resources to that. For example, we're going to be working on phase 2 of the NASCAR. The NASCAR update, I guess we call it. We released phase 1 of that. Now we're releasing phase 2. But overall, we want to keep making the tires and the physics better, keep improving things. Graphics is a huge area of focus. That's definitely an opportunity to improve. We're looking at building a whole new, graphics engine. We haven't quite decided exactly what we're going to do, but we need a new renderer and a graphics update, and I think that's an opportunity to improve. And then new features. Career mode is something we certainly want to. We're working on now, and we're really excited about. I think the single player stuff in iRacing could be much better. The onboarding, different ways to get involved in iRacing, whether that's an interactive racing school, getting people more comfortable on track. We have a lot of ideas around that, including even a driving coach with AI and a crew chief. So we want to there's a lot of ways we can get people more comfortable on the track, and racing's hard. To be out there on the track by yourself, it'd be good to get feedback, just like you do in the real world with a crew chief and a driving coach. So there's a lot of things like that we have planned, but overall we want to just keep improving everything. The net code, the performance, the frame rates, graphics. We're just gonna, we have a lot of ideas around new features. So just up and down the board, we just got to keep working hard to get better. There's still so much opportunity to improve.
Yep, and we're pushing in a lot of areas. Last thing I want to talk about, this isn't on the outline, but it's something that obviously is top of mind for us. We also have a new title with another studio that we've acquired with the Orontes, but with Exocross coming out pretty soon, right?
Yeah, so that's we have the MGI studio that I talked about, which right now has the World of Outlaws franchise and is working on the NASCAR game. But we have this other studio that we acquired at about the same time, the Oronte studio, and they had a game called Drag, an early release on Steam, and it wasn't finished, and so we've been working on taking that game to a new level, finishing up that game. We've added a ton to it, other driving opportunities for people. We added AI. And a lot more content, a whole new, more tracks and whatnot, and kept working on the features. So we're really excited. The game drive's incredible, and we're scheduled to release that this summer. So we're really excited about it. So we're in our final stages of development, about to submit it to Microsoft and Sony to get for approval, and we're going to release that this summer. So we're really excited about it. It's an off-road driving game. It kind of has a futuristic appeal to it, and it's more towards a rally game, but it's super fun, and so it's different than anything we do on iRacing. So it should appeal to an audience. But if you really enjoy good driving games, you're going to like this game, and it's really fun.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. I know Chris Leone, who will be joining us for the rest of the podcast, has had a lot of input and opinions on the storyline of that, and he's pretty excited. Anybody that watched the podcast, anything on Dirt, Chris loves. So I think people are going to really enjoy it.
And the graphics are amazing. I mean, it has an unbelievable graphics engine. It's one of the things that attracted us to the studio. So it's really, really cool. It's really fun. It's really visually, it's awesome. So we're really excited about it.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the time with us today, Tony. I know we got a busy day ahead of us, but yeah, thanks for carving out some time for us. And on that note, let's get back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
A great interview there with the iRacing Downshift podcast and Tony Gardner. A lot of the look into the development of the sim as it rolls forward. Of course, that Season 2 update, licensing, all the new games coming out in the next several years that iRacing is working on. Really exciting, but we have another half of iRacing Happy Hour, and we're glad to join you once again. Kenneth Bueno alongside Joey Atterbury and Keenan Kusan. We had a fantastic Super Formula Lights race earlier on today. Now we get to go multi-class racing, Joey. The magic of different cars. A lot of these implemented into iRacing many years ago. Classics on the sim. We get to see all of these drivers put in the work as they're going through qualifying.
They may be classic cars, but they are not vintage cars out there. And remember, these things are going to be hauling the mail compared to those Super Formula Lights that we saw just a little bit ago. So instead of the draft pack racing that we really saw, we are going to see cars putting the power down, struggling in these conditions. And then also the brake markers, they are going to be so crucial going into those chicanes because the speeds that they carry, tremendous with these vehicles. Not only that, but the weight, we're pretty much going to double the weight. So you really got to be on top of those brake zones in this 30-minute race.
Common thread, 30 minutes, open setups, and a C-class needed to race in this series. We do have drivers from all of the different classes, so we will be pretty well represented throughout this race in the final minute of qualifying. This is only one of the many cars we'll see in this race. That is the Corvette C6R GT1. We'll have the Aston Martin as well, along with the Ford GT2 and the HPD ARX 01C, the prototype car in this class. Keenan, there's a look at the Ford GT and the GT2 car that we'll see in the midway through the class. Your thoughts about this race? I know it looks like it's about to rain, but it's going to be overcast throughout the entire afternoon in sim. What's the excitement level like for this race and how you think it's all going to play out?
It's going to be nuts. I've driven both these cars for two endurance, well, the top two classes, GT1 and the HPD. The HPD is, I'm sure a lot of us in the era where we grew up watching sports car racing, open top, super fast cars, high revving engines. They're so fun to watch. They're so fun to drive. Lots of downforce. And then the GT1s are just some of the most visceral cars on the sim. Really loud engine, really, whether that's the Corvette or the Aston, where you get that V8 grumble or that V12 scream. No ABS, no traction control. It is all down to your hands and how good you are with your inputs. Very unforgiving cars, but once you get into rhythm, they're a ton of fun.
They have a lot of power. We will take you trackside and get you the starting grid of our second race here in this iRacing Happy Hour doubleheader from the virtual Monza circuit, where on the pole from the HPD class prototype will be Jordy Speckins in the 3. He will be flanked by Liam Loisel in the number 6 car on his outside. Row number 2, 3rd and 4th will feature Zachary Munko in the 21. Alejandro Bailon in the number 22 will be on his outside. Matthew Cockram will be inside row 3 with Michael Schillab in the number 15 on his outside. Back to 7th, you'll find Carlos Sorribes Ojeda in the number 19 with Dakota Williams in the 24 flanking him. Dowd Klein in the number 9 spot with David Whitehouse to round out the top 10 and the first class, Joey.
Yeah, and then we've got these GT1 cars on pole position as Kevin Bellins in that number 1 vehicle. And then second in GT1 is going to be David Barraclaw in that 12th overall position. Then we have Jack Wells lined up alongside Cam Porter, Christian Arntz here in the 5th place in GT1, Connor McDermott in 6th, Lawrence DeBro, Troy Eddy in 8th, James Reed in 9th in class, and a couple more GT1 cars, Robert Corbett, as well as Dalton Woodard in the back.
Krzysztof Olenishek is going to get the pole for the 4 GTs, and Ethan Bass running up in 2nd place. Jack Pitas going to be 3rd, with Seth Whitaker, iRacing's very own marketing web developer, going to be rounding out 4th position in the GT2 class. Javier Mosquera, who just went in chat and said, "I'm scared," will be in 5th place, with Joan Rodriguez rounding out 6th. Ethan Slowey in 7th position in the GT2s. Emerson Godin is going to be rounding out those who got a qualifying time in the GT2 class, with Larry Rioan Fulcher going to be the one lone Ford that did not get a time in.
And you're looking at a healthy mix of different classes represented for those who did not take time in qualifying. This is the run up to Ascari. I think I like the words that was just voiced there by you, Keenan. I'm scared. I think a lot of drivers' thoughts are going to be that entering turn 1. We saw a really clean start for the Super Formula Lights race. No real contact, no real crashing apart from the exit of the Lesmo curves and, of course, our trip to Ascari, but we didn't have that many casualties off of those incidents. Here, when you have multi-class racing and a lot more power and weight with these cars, it will be a little more difficult. Hard braking zone, these cars are kind of wide boys, if you will, compared to the Super Formula Light. So it might just be that much more difficult. There's a look at the HPD cars as they stroll through the back straightaway, entering Parabolica. And Joey, this is really one of the greatest parts about this circuit, because it's a little straightaway before you get to the big one down the start finish line. This is where Jacob Reed had that move and was fighting first and second with these drivers off the final corner. Looks like the pace car, the Porsche, will make its way to the right side, entering pit road. Jordy Speckins and Liam Loisel will bring us to the green flag first. 30 minutes on tap from Italy and Monza. Slow pace by Speckins and Loisel off the final corner, all on their discretion to bring us underway. The second of our doubleheader on iRacing Happy Hour is green. Speckins up ahead, side by side between Loisel and Munko in the run up to turn 1. They will be okay for now, but it's all about how you enter the braking zone. Side by side for about 3rd place. Munko under fire from Bailong. They enter cleanly, not that many casualties through the first pair of corners. And Joey, here we go. GT1 crossing the start finish line.
Already loud on the gas pedal. It is Bellens leading the way. That's Barraclaw there on the outside, but for the most part, single file for the top 5, and then going into the first chicane, that's where it's going to get really busy. Stand on that brake pedal, and we see some of the Fords already going through the chicane, going straight on, avoiding any of that contact in front of them.
There was one car that went off into the grass on the braking zone. The car just absolutely wiggled, and Keenan, throughout the entirety of the Ford GT2 field, that got the most sketchy out of all of the classes. There's a look at all of the running orders on the left-hand side of your screen, but for what it's worth, really good start.
Yeah, I think just the Fords didn't leave that much of a gap to the GT1s because the pace is so similar, and Javier Mosquera just went on the brakes a little bit too hot. Went, yeah, I don't think so, and didn't even attempt the chicane. Good move. He's serving his fast, or not fast repair. Am I talking about? He's serving a slowdown penalty right now, but he's still going to come out of that in 3rd position if this is where he cycles to. So instead of trying to make that car fit in there and maybe causing an incident, just went, yeah, I'm good. And it may have worked out for him here in the long run. We'll have to see where he ends up in the next 30 minutes.
So we saw Seth Whitaker there. He is in the number 4, the iRacing marketing web developer. Got a piece of damage entering the first corner. Just got hit from the behind left side of the race car. Got a bit of that little rear view tailgate. So it looks like a bit of damage there. Shouldn't affect Whitaker all that much, but decked out in the red, white, and blue. The iRacing colors, of course. He is 4th in class. Jack Pitas in the 16 will be right behind him, along with Joan Z. Rodriguez in the number 12. There's a look at Larry Riordan Fulcher in the number 25, all the way at the back end of this 9-car class from the Midwest. Another iRacing car.
It's always awesome to have so many participants, not only just out here racing, but also guys that are working at iRacing. It doesn't matter if you're part of marketing or if you're actually involved with the game itself. They're out here racing during happy hour. Always awesome to see familiar names. And then the other thing, I was just going to kind of set the scene. I know we've got a couple different production cars. We talked about the different versions of them, but these Corvettes and the Aston Martin that you have on screen right here, these are the GT1 class. It is just a little bit faster than those 4 GTs. Those are in the GT2 class. So we're going to see Aston Martin versus Corvette, and then the Fords are really going to be battling amongst themselves. Consider it kind of a spec Ford race back there.
And Keenan, you were mentioning this before we went back live for this Proto GT Thrustmaster Challenge race, was the fact that the GT1 is pretty difficult to drive because these cars have a heap of power between the Aston Martin and the Chevy Corvette. A look here from Jack Wells in the 5, teammate of our director, Drew Adamson, up in the production trailer. But these cars are tough to manage, but they are very rewarding when you get things right.
Yeah, so they're not, as Joey said, they're not vintage. Oh, we had a little bit of an accident. More of a little bit. There's 2 HPDs. That's Daoud Klein and David Grimm. Nowhere near the racetrack, and I think that is going into Parabolica. And unfortunately for them, they're going to have already going into. We're still wrecking back here as we have some issues in the GTs now.
More drivers getting into trouble here. We were looking at the 3-wide action. Daoud Klein is out of the way in Parabolica. And through the GT1 class, they're starting to get a bit chippy as well. And some of the other HPD cars are getting out of the way. David Grimm, who got a piece of the contact, who was all the way at the bottom, 3 wide. Now they're going to take the trip to pit road. Not the start they were anticipating here, Joey. And the worst part of it all, no freebies. You're looking at having to repair all of that damage. And for Klein, that's going to be the worst of them all. Here's a look at the replay of what happened in this HPD category. This is going into Parabolica, off Ascari, banging sides against each other, and then it gets pretty nasty entering the final corner.
Yeah, it just gets stacked up coming out of Ascari, really going in there, and then we're going to see 3 wide. Watch this orange car split through the middle. It's going to squeeze a little bit going into driver's left into the Parabolica, takes that other green car off the track, and then they're just both along for the ride. The top speeds down there into that section, well over 160 miles an hour. So if you get into any sort of scrap down there, oh boy, you're in for a ride.
And in for a ride we are so far in the first several minutes of this iRacing Happy Hour session in the Proto GT Thrustmaster Challenge. Multi-class racing is always fun, even when you have trouble, because you get everybody mixed up together. Let's turn up the sounds and go once again iRacing full throttle. The gorgeous sounds of V8 and V12 rumbles all around the table. Really great to watch. And we were looking at that side-by-side battle between the two drivers at the overall race lead. Jody Speckins in the 3 under fire from Liam Lozelle, then went back around him, so Speckin has control by the tune of 0.6 of a second. But Joey, you brought this up a little earlier. Wanted to touch on this a little bit. The battle for the GT1 lead has not calmed down even after the race starts. 6 laps in, Kevin Bellens in the Corvette C6R leads David Barriclough in the Aston Martin DBR9. They both have been nose to tail, back and forth, going at it.
And this is that lead battle headed down into the Parabolica on lap number 5 for them. So you're right, Bellens leading the way in the Corvette, Barriclough in the Aston Martin. Then you got Jack Wells, and these three have just kind of been in an accordion effect. Sometimes it'll compress up, sometimes it'll stretch out, but right now on the front straightaway, actually, David's got a tremendous run on our leader, so we're going to see that Aston Martin pop out to driver's left. Let's see how confident both of these drivers are on the brakes. Looks like the Corvette of Bellens just going to take advantage a little bit, taking that inside line, says, I don't want to give up the lead quite yet in the race. Still got 20 minutes left to settle this thing out.
Barriclough in the middle of a Corvette sandwich because Jack Wells has found himself in the bout for the top spot. Bellens a quick defensive line entering turn 1 and the first part of the chicanes, entering the second chicanes, also known as Variante della Roggia here at Autodromo Nazionale Monza. Into the corner, looks like it's all good this time before the 3 cars can get out to Ascari. Keenan, I mean, this GT1 class has been on fire. I think every single class we have seen a good amount of racing. The only bit of racing we've seen separated has been in the Ford class, but all around really close racing.
Yeah, that's what you get with multi-class, is that you get little battles everywhere. There's a lot of ways that the race progresses. This is really kind of a short sprint when you talk about multi-class racing, where I don't think we're going to see the GT1s overtake the GT2s where it gets real crazy, but we'll absolutely see the HPDs overtake the field, as well as maybe some slower cars who've had some issues. I know the 24 of the HPDs is going to be working its way through the field, as we are side by side for P11 with Nathan Beastie and Jervin Mouden. They've been fighting back and forth for the last couple of laps. To the inside is Nathan Beastie. He's going to get it done going into the first chicane after that big long straightaway. He's going to open a little bit of a gap, so I think he's going to be safe going into turn 2. But yeah, it is just managing traffic now and trying to make the moves at the right time. You're not going to have as much downforce as we did in the Super Formulas, so you're not going to see those huge runs or the air getting broken. And I think because of that, you're going to see a lot more moves because you're going to be able to make passes and make them stick throughout the inside of the course.
Looking at Nathan Beastie in the number 18, remember he is still recovering from that 3-wide contact that he endured going into Parabolica with some of the other drivers who were unfortunately taken out early in this race. Beastie did get the least amount of damage out of the 3, so he's still on comeback time as it will, although he's about 3.5 seconds off the next car in line, Jan Freeman in the 31 machine, 10th in the overall category and 10th in his class. So a bit more separation throughout the HPG field. We do have a battle building up for 5th slightly between Michael Schillab and Alejandro Baez-Lone in the number 22. And here's a look back at Seth Whitaker. Got a piece of the damage earlier on in this race, but Joey already up to 3rd and trying to attack on Ethan Bass. What is it like to try and make a move here at Monza? We mentioned the hard braking zones and the straightaways, but again, this is a very different car from the Super Formula Light, so you're treating this differently. You might have to tread waters a little more lightly here.
And what better ride on board to analyze that than with Seth here? And remember, iRacing marketing web developer. So to talk about your point here, Kenneth, he's just going to sit there in the draft. Monza does have several different passing opportunities, but you got to be close enough to make the lunges when you get to those passing opportunities. And typically, they're the big-time brake zones. Now, heading into the Ascari chicane with the production-based cars, usually not a passing opportunity, but those curves, those apex curves, they can upset the car. So what Whitaker's going to do is just follow in the tire tracks here, hope for a mistake out of that car right in front of him, and then he'll be able to make that pass, make the opportunity going down this back straightaway here and into the Parabolica. It can be also tough following a car right in front of you. We haven't talked about it very much, and it doesn't affect the production cars as much, but it's still there, Kenneth. The dirty air, the faster you go, the worse it can get.
and also the mental game you're playing with the car in front of you, Joey. Really good point there, because if you're following in the tracks of a car, sure, you're probably learning what they're doing here, Keenan, but at the same time, you're also facing the situation of, am I driving it too hard to keep up with them? And then at the point you can burn off your tires and have a situation to where you just start to fall back little by little. We did have a situation with the top drivers in the HPD class. Liam Loisel is on pit road after spinning, entering the second chicane. There was something that happened to Loisel, taking him out of the top class.
Yeah, so just a self-spin, as we're going to actually get a replay of that. Perfect. So it was just a self-spin of the 6, and unfortunately not the best rejoin. I understand what the mentality here. You drop it, so you just sliding in a little bit on the brakes and getting the spin. You're going to see him put it in reverse, not really check his mirrors. He sees the GT coming and then just clatters the 21 machine, I believe, Zachary Munko. And I know that that's a thing that happens. It's unfortunate. You get spun around. There's still lots of race left. Your main thought process is to get back going, but unfortunate for both of them, that's going to be a trip to the pit lane.
It's a way to sort of continue to keep pace with the lost time and get back on the track, but it's really narrow there in that chicane part of the racetrack, so you really have to be careful. And unfortunately for one of our top runners in the overall class, might just be out of this. But look at this, the mix between GT1 and an HPD machine. Dakota Williams in the 24 looking to scurry past David Barraclough and Kevin Bellens. The battle for the GT1 lead still on, entering the second chicane, De La Roja. Dakota will have the advantage entering the corner, so the good news there, Joey, is that he doesn't have to continue to play with these GT1 cars all too much. But that's the miracle and the magic of multi-class racing, is that you're always going to find somebody to either race around or race with, whether it's in your class or not. You have to be so conscious of the fact that you, as an HPD car, are faster than those GT1s, and you have to really tiptoe your way around that traffic. You don't want to mess up their run for the lead as well.
Gonna watch this replay here of one of the prototypes cars. Now this is into the first Lesmo, dealing with that multi-class traffic, and now into Lesmo number 2 here, and just front to back contact. I'm actually pretty surprised it didn't spin that lead prototype around, but both cars able to get back on the track nice and easy. And check this one out, Kenneth. This is Seth Whitaker. We were watching him trying to make that move, and around the outside in the second chicane, move him up into second.
Picking the right moment at the right time. Whitaker up to second in the GT2 class with the Fords. They're still trying to follow the 8 car, Krzysztof Oleniczak in the number 8 machine. But these cars have been really, really close between each other. And surprisingly enough there, Keenan, interesting pass. You'd see maybe some attempts at passing in that De La Roja chicane, but not the way that Whitaker did it. Kept it clean between him and Ethan, and a great run. Whitaker up to second.
Hey, racing's like a metaphor for life. If you see the opportunity, you got to go for it. Seth saw the opportunity and he went for it. Basically for the class lead right now. Krzysztof's in a league of his own, running about a second quicker than the rest of the field. As we still have, again, as you said, great racing all around the field. We basically have a 3-car race for the lead that is only going to get tighter and tighter. These guys are on top of each other in lap time, and the race for P2 in GT2. There is some stuff that's happening in the prototype class as well, but the tip top seem to be where the closest fights are right now. As Ethan Bass going to try maybe take a look on Seth Whitaker, opting not to. Really well played, because he saw the prototype in his mirror and gave him the room, as the overlap, my friends, has now begun. This is where multi-class racing becomes its most chaotic and arguably its most fun.
You know, you have 3 different types of objectives for each class. Number 1, you have the HPDs. They're trying to just get by traffic. They're not really fighting each other. They just want to get around all the GT2s, and then inevitably the GT1s with a little under 13 minutes left in this happy hour session. Then for the GT1s, it's about the fight for the lead between these 3 and what they're going to do. Here's Barraclough, a look to the outside for the GT1 lead going into Parabolica. He will have the wider way around the racetrack in the final corner. Jack Wells in the fellow Corvette could be able to make a move down the inside. Barraclough not successful this trip around, but the draft will help him get the run down the main straightaway. Joey, we're going to be door to door for P1 and GT1 again.
I've been watching this, and I feel like Bellens in this white Corvette is kind of on the back foot. Let's see how hard he defends into the first chicane, really deep on the brakes, gets everything slowed down and stopped. But I feel like that number 2 Aston Martin, that blue and orange Aston Martin, definitely has more pace than our lead Corvette. Whether that's due to the slipstream or not, I don't know. That's purely speculative, but he has been all over the back of Bellens, not just this previous lap, but the last handful of laps. He gets closer and closer every time they go down the front straightaway. Most of the time, he backs out of it going into the first chicane, but that last lap going into Parabolica, that was the first time that I really saw him try to go and battle up front. I think it's about to boil over soon.
And Barrichello, the second Aston Martin inside the top 5. Connor McDermott in 13 has been rolling calmly throughout this race, but he is off the pace and not in the range of Wells, Barrichello, and Bellens, this three-way fight for the GT1 lead. But if you're the 2-car Barrichello, Jared Keenan, you're in a pretty interesting spot. Not only are you the only Aston Martin out of the 3 cars, you've got some pretty heavy Chevrolet bald eagle power all around you front and back, but you also have the situation of playing offense on Bellens, but then having to defend against Jack Wells. What is that like as a driver, just making sure that you handle the pressure on both sides?
So, in that first race, we saw 2 groups of Super Formula Lights that were really patient. They didn't want to race each other because they knew the harder they raced, traffic was going to get them. Realistically, the number 4 machine of Connor McDermott is 5 to 6 seconds behind Jack Wells in 3rd place. So if you are David Barrichello, you're just racing. Fighting, unless you're worried about an incident of some sort, fighting with Kevin is not really going to cost you that much time. Jack Wells seems to almost be one of the quicker ones of the 3 when he gets clean air. So if you don't put pressure on that number 1, that number 5 is going to be putting pressure on you. So if you want to sit and wait like we saw in that first race, I think David, as we see, a little bit of a mistake from David Barrichello, goes over 2 tires off, door open for Jack Wells, blood in the water, thank you, sir. And we might get this pass complete before we get to De La Roger. It seems like they're side by side. Keep in mind, big curves here. We've seen issues there, and David Barrichello opting to go for preservation, getting off the throttle, and now it is a Corvette 1-2 in the GT1 class.
Wells took the pounce on the Aston Martin through Curva Biasono, and all of a sudden Jack Wells makes it a Corvette 1-2 here in GT1. A quick replay on what happened in the back end of the HPD field. Nathan Beastie, you remember his recovery through the top 10. He was 9th. This is 8th and 9th. Jan Freeman entering the chicane. De La Roja, they're going to make a bit of contact. As there goes Beastie up over the curves and around and getting a piece of that Ford GT2 car on the way there. Took away the rear wing for a moment. And really nothing that they could do there, as here's the fight for the 2nd spot in GT2, and a tough recovery there, Joey, for Beastie, who was just getting his rhythm together, just found himself in another incident.
You know, when it rains, it pours on the racetrack, and sometimes you just don't have any luck at all. But this is that battle for 2nd in GT2. Remember, Seth Whitaker was able to get around Ethan Bass earlier, but ever since then, Ethan has not let go of the gearbox on that Ford GT, and now we're just going to have to deal with that multi-class traffic going around. So through the first lesson, we see Ethan kind of posture. He doesn't want to let that Honda go in between, or I'm sorry, the Acura. That's going to separate him from Seth, and that's exactly what he doesn't want to do. If that gap grows any larger, he has the potential to lose the slipstream, and if that happens, you might as well say bye-bye to Seth.
Splitting the GT2 cars are 2 HPD machines that are running 6th and 7th. It started with David Whitehouse and ended with Carlos Sorribes Ojeda in the number 19. Battle for 2nd, and HPD starting to come together. Alejandro Bailon in the number 22 has been keeping tabs with Matthew Cockrum, and they are about 19.5 seconds away from Jordy Speckins. It's a really separated race in HPD. They're going to catch up to a fellow prototype car up the road, which is going to be Nathan Beastie, so they're going to have to be a little careful as they move on through. But Bailon here, Keelan with a good opportunity to get through Cockrum and through the chicane.
Yeah, both these drivers just been surviving the attrition. The HPD class seems to be the one where we have the most issues. Again, these cars, prototype cars, very hard to drive, especially since we're in the open sets here too. A lot of rearward bias. We've seen 2, 3, 4 cars now spinning on the brakes, braking and under hard braking. So being able to keep this car under control, whether that hard braking, it is a prototype car. It does like the rear bias, but both these guys have just been watching the world kind of fall apart around them and going, okay, I'll be on the podium. That's fine. No worries. as Alejandro, again, you're in third position. You have the step on the podium, but why not go for one more? Almost like in GT2, this is basically for the win, as the lead driver, unless has huge issues, has just been showing so much pace over the rest of this field. So in these guys' minds, I've been in this exact same position before. You're like, well, we're not catching the leader, so this is my W. This is my win. So I'm not sure if we're going to see them fight super, super hard, but we are running out of time here.
It's a play of risk versus reward as you look on board with Alejandro Bailon. If you do end up overstepping, you could fall out of the top 3, maybe even the top 5, just based on how things have played out with the damage. But if you hold where you are, it's at least a podium. But you'll probably just come away in this race knowing that you could have gone the extra mile to get second place. These two will catch up to Beastie entering turn 1 in the first chicane on the main straightaway. They still haven't been able to properly pass that fellow HPD up front. But what's going to be even more fun here, Joey, is that they're catching a bit of the GT traffic. They start with Jack Pitas in the 16 on the GT2 class for the Fords. Then a Corvette with Lawrence Dobro and Troy Eddy. So the HPDs have a lot more fun on their hands in the future.
Yeah, I see that just on the horizon. And speaking of some stuff on the horizon, the Nürburgring 24-hour, May 17th, 18th, and 19th here on iRacing, Kenneth. I know that we talked about this. This is one that you got to attack the track. Everybody looks forward to this one. It's going to be very fun.
Nürburgring 24 going to be all the more exciting. And also in May, late May, near Memorial Day weekend, is going to be the longest event in stock car racing, the Coca-Cola 600. That comes their way May 21st through 27th at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. 400 laps, 600 miles of fun in the official session. One of the biggest iRacing official events, and returning to the sim, the Indianapolis 500 makes its stunning return to iRacing with the special event. Qualifying happens May 27th through 31st, and we'll have the race June 1st through 2nd. iRacing will have the coverage for that. And Keenan, we did have the conversation with Tony Gardner on the iRacing Downshift podcast, and he was talking about the return of the IndyCar license, how exciting that was for iRacing to finally get these open-wheeled cars back on the sim for everyone to enjoy, including this huge special event that we'll be excited to see for sure.
Yeah, I know my friends over at Team I5G are going to be stoked. They've won that race basically for every race in the last 5 years. So I'm excited for them to be able to compete. I know I've been following their whole saga of not having the license back, and they are thrilled. I'm sure the rest of the IndyCar community is thrilled as well. Even having something back, like as well as the IndyCar series, being able to race those races, it's just been a treat to be able to have. Welcome back the Indy 500 with arms wide open, back into its rightful place in the iRacing service.
And adding another great event to what's already a list full of special events on iRacing. Like we said, with the Nürburgring 24, Coca-Cola 600, we had the Daytona 500 official session go up a couple of months ago in February, and so much more. The Sebring 12-hour, which had a lot of rain in the forecast, 96% that a lot of drivers had to deal with. A look with another iRacing member as we were tuning into the battle for second place in the GT2 class. Ethan Bass getting around Seth Whitaker, and there's the 25 of Larry Riordan. Fulcher in the 25, 7th in class as it stands.
Watching them blast down the straightaway here, trying to close this out. And Kenneth, this is one of the points that we haven't talked about yet with the multi-classes, where these GT2 cars are actually going to collect the checkered flag, because if you're in the middle of a battle like we saw with Whitaker and some of these other cars, it's kind of a guess where that prototype leader is when you're going to get the white flag and actually cross the checkered, because you got to remember that timer, it's based on that lead class.
You're right. As we look back at the HPD class, the fight for second place between Cockrum and Bailon, and just to mention off of Larry Riordan Fulcher, he's actually the man that designed those beautiful posters you were seeing for those iRacing special events, creating the great designs and getting our eyes excited for the great racing. Look at this side-by-side action for the GT2 class. That got chippy through Ascari, Keenan.
Seth Whitaker moving back to third place. Ethan Bass trying to break the toe. Seth Whitaker, you see him on the lights, not too happy about that one. He's got time to do something about it. We still have 3 minutes left of this race. 1, maybe 2, maybe 1. Numbers are really hard. Go to school, kids. At least 2 laps to go. But it is not over for Seth Whitaker. We have battles all over the racetrack, gentlemen.
It is not over at all. Whitaker was way sideways through Ascari, able to handle it on the way there. He'll have the shot at the 7 car before it is all said and done. Top of your screen, the battle for second in HPD between Matthew Cockrum and Alejandro Bailon. Then on the left bottom side of your screen, the battle for the GT1 lead between Kevin Bellens and Jack Wells. Or P2 in every class. So this is where Jack Wells sits behind Bellens with David Barraclough right behind. And then the GT2 class, like we just saw with Whitaker and the 7 car of Ethan Bates. It's been amazing to watch. Final 2 minutes left. Safe to say, Joey, I think we've had stunning flag-to-flag racing on both ends of the spectrum. Remember the Super Formula Lights race? We went side by side at the start-finish line. Could we have it 3 times over here?
I think we could. I mean, that's typically what we get out of Monza is just huge draft packs. And look, they're going to go 3 wide, splitting the Corvette GT1 down the front straightaway here. So this is Cockrum and Bailon just arguing over second place. And now we're going to get one of them turned into the left side wall. That's Bailon losing out on it. Doesn't look like too much damage, but promote Matthew Cockrum up into second.
And he will have no pressure from here on out until the end of this race with the final minute and a half left to go from Monza. We'll see if we can get a replay on what exactly happened between Bailon and Cockrum, but you saw it there as it happened live. Merging lane to make the contact, and the 22 car goes into the inside wall. Will remain in third, but the question really is how long can he hold on to it? He's got at least a 10.7 second gap. Here is Whitaker back for the fight in GT2 through Parabolica.
Told you this wasn't over. We're having fallen apart all over the racetrack. David Barraclough spinning out, and Jack Wells going to be promoted to second. That race is basically over. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your final battle on the racetrack for position. That is nose to nose. Ethan Bass, Seth Whitaker. These two are not huge fans of each other. We are still side by side as the checkered flag goes to Jordy Spurgins in a white flag for Jordy Spurgins. As we're side by side again. Again, I don't think Seth's really happy with Ethan right now.
Well, they've been going at it back and forth. It's really exploding here. The fireworks all over Monza in every single class. A quick look at Jordy Speckens. He grabs the white flag with about 25 seconds left. He is up by 27.2 seconds over the second car in line, Matthew Cockrum. So it might just be a sealed deal for Jordy Speckens in the 3. There's the GT2 class going at it. Speckens, as long as he has a clean lap, Joey, should walk away with this win. The checkered flag will be displayed for all 3 classes.
And we're actually seeing Speckens going to come up and pass these GT2 cars. So what they thought was going to be one more lap to go is actually their final lap, because I have a feeling that Acura is going to get up there and pass him. And if he does, that's going to be race over in that GT2 class. The sand is running out of the hourglass for Seth Whitaker.
But Speckens has the decision to just hold back and let him race. He does not have any pressure from behind. And any of the HPD cars, the onboard look from the 3, he's not holding back. He will have the run down the back straightaway, way loose, caught the wiggle, and is able to hold on to it. Jordy Speckens with a masterclass effort as Whitaker tries to get to base. The final lap, they are going to be swerving all over the back straightaway. Speckens will get there off the final corner. And in our second race of iRacing Happy Hour, the Proto GT Thrustmaster Challenge, this one goes to Jordy Speckens. We'll let the 4 GT2s race it out. Whitaker falls short from base. And there is Speckens to the checkered flag for the HPD class. And for Kevin Bellens, holds on over Jack Wells. He will win the GT1 category with his C6R Corvette.
Jordy Speckens doing one of the most sportsmanlike things he could have possibly done there and said, go ahead, gentlemen, let him race. Again, as you said, Kevin Bellens taking home. He had a little bit of pressure there in the middle of the race, and then after a little bit of argy-bargy, just got comfortable and took out to an early lead. But the battle still is for P2 in the GT2 class. Ethan Bass and Seth Whitaker have been door-to-door fighting the entire race. Seth with a little bit of a sideways into the chicane there. It's going to cost him time. There's not a whole lot of racetrack left here, Kenneth.
Could be over for Whitaker's chances at going for second. We know that Krzysztof Olejniczak in the number 8 machine is clearing away by over 11.5 seconds. He should be able to cross the finish line without any doubts about his Ford GT2 class win. And there's the gap from second to third, growing all the more larger through the end of this race. Krzysztof Olejniczak in the number 8 will let the HPD by, and this is basically a done deal for the 8 car. Will grab the class win for the Ford GT2s. here at Monza, letting that HPD through Valle Molica. Maybe a little more excitement before we get to the start-finish line, but the 8 car victorious in the Ford GT2 class. Joey, fireworks all around. There's Christoph with the celebratory moment down the front straightaway. Looks like the battle for second decided.
Yeah, Ethan Bass is going to stand at second, and then Seth Whitaker will round out the podium third in that GT2 class filled with those Ford GT cars. It just separated out a little bit with that slip up there in the second chicane. That's really what decided that battle at the end.
So all classes done with here at Monza. Our second race of the iRacing Happy Hour concluded with the Proto GT Thrustmaster Challenge. Jordy Speckens the winner overall in the HPD category. There was no reasonable doubt that Jordy Speckens wasn't going to win this race. Matthew Cockram in second place. Alejandro Bailon, a great fight between those two in the closing laps. It ends the same way as we saw it. Herman Mendez in fourth. Michael Schillip to round out your top 5, and a look down the order at the rest of the HPD field. That's your top 10 with Mateus Magrones Ribeiro in the number 30 machine through the 10th spot. And then everyone down low, you start to swarm into the GT1 category, Joey, where you see the rest of the HPD field and Kevin Bellens with the W in his Corvette C6R.
Yeah, Kevin Bellens claimed that GT1 win. Jack Wells in the other Corvette is going to be second. Connor McDermott actually finishes third in that class. If you remember, it was David Barriclow that was really kind of hounding in that top 3 lead. He falls all the way back to fourth in the results. Christian Arts here in fifth. Cam Porter finishing sixth. Troy Eddy in seventh. Lawrence DeBro in eighth. Robert Corbett in ninth. And then James Reese rounding out the top 10 in those GT1 cars. And then the final, Dalton Woodward, the final 11th car in class.
Again, as we said, Christoph Olenicek, really no issues for him sailing out to a 13-second lead and the win here at Monza. But that battle for second was hot up until the very end. Ethan Bass taking it over Seth Whitaker. Seth, again, they're rolling 3 of them right now on the back straightaway. So maybe they weren't mad at each other. Maybe it was just a good, hard fight. Juan Rodriguez is going to be in fourth place. Javier Mosquera, who was so afraid at the beginning of the race, coming home with the top 5. Reed slowly going quickly to finish him up in 6th. Larry Fulcher, our other iRacing employee, going in 7th place. And then with Jack Pittas and rounding out the top 10. But fellas, if you like multi-class, again, we are not done here on the iRacing service. Within the next month, May 17th and 19th, you like 3 classes? How about 4 and one of the hardest racetracks in the world?
All of the GT3 and GT4 cars on display. The Nürburgring 24 hours coming your way in May, and so is the iRacing Coca-Cola 600 with the NASCAR Cup Series stock cars, the longest event in stock car racing at 600 miles, 400 laps around that 1.5 miles in Concord, North Carolina, and the return of the Brickyard, the Indy 500, going to the May 27th and 31st date calendar. June 1st and 2nd, we'll have the actual 500-mile race between all the splits, and we will have our coverage of that Indy 500 race in June on the iRacing platforms. Tune in to the Coke Series, the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. This is their previous race on the road course at Brands Hatch. A lot of experimentation. We had Bobby Zelensky getting the checkered flag after moving by Steven Wilson midway through the race. A lot of action, but they take back to the oval scene and head to Miles the Monster, Dover Motor Speedway, on tap for the Coke Series. April 23rd, you'll find that coverage starting with Countdown to Green, and then the official broadcast with Evan Pasoko and Blake McCandless at 8 p.m. Eastern. Also, if you want to have more iRacing affiliated action, you can grab your hands on the World of Outlaws dirt racing game, available now on mostly all console platforms: Xbox, Xbox Series X, PS4, PS5, and your Nintendo Switch. It's been out for a while. Great reviews, fantastic game. If you haven't gotten your hands on it, please do. Really great game that iRacing is continuing to expand into the console space as well. We rejoined the 3 of us in the booth: Kenneth Bueno, Joey Atterbury, Keenan Kusin, and guys, great racing overall. We started with Super Formula Lights, photo finish. We almost had a photo finish 3 times over with all of the classes. Joey, your final thoughts after this afternoon of racing?
I loved seeing those Super Formula Lights racing, the draft pack at Monza. It came down to that photo finish at the end, but there was battles throughout the front the middle of the pack, and then the back of the pack. So I would say if you're looking for a new car on iRacing, go get that Super Formula Lights. It looks like a ton of fun to race out there. Not to mention, it's all pack racing, so you're out there with your buddies, and then you couple that with some of the best sounds we heard in that Proto GT with those GT1 cars here on iRacing. Music to my ears.
Beautiful sounds all around. I can't really debate you on that because it's some of the best sounds in all of iRacing. Keenan, your final thoughts after both of our races with the GT and prototype classes and the Super Formula Lights to kick it off?
I think one of the coolest part about sim racing is being introduced to new disciplines. So some people, I know I wasn't super familiar with Super Formula, whether that's Super Formula or Super Formula Lights, until iRacing, being able to experience those cars and being able to get interested in a brand new series. So it was cool to see them raced by some of the most talented people behind the wheel in the sim, and then we partied like it was 2009 right after that with the Proto GT class. And again, you can't beat the sounds. We talked about that ad nauseum. I will talk about it again. But excellent racing front to back. We had a full field of all three classes. There was good battles in all three classes for all positions throughout the grid. We had thrills, we had spills. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we had a treat today here at Happy Hour.
We really did. A blast from the past and then a look at the new from iRacing on both ends of the spectrum. Great racing. Congratulations to Jacob Reed and Mark Spahns, all the great racing they had there. And then Jordy Speckins, Kevin Bellens, and Christoph Olenichak, all of their wins in the classes throughout the afternoon here on iRacing Happy Hour. We were talking about Season 2, rain update, everything else on the iRacing platform. One of the most hyped updates had on the sim in many, many years. To give you a little more context on the development side of things, here is iRacing executive producer Greg Hill with more on iRacing Season 2.
The Season 2 March build is absolutely stacked with improvements, new features, great new content, and the first of a series of new features focused on improving iRacing for new customers. Together with Rain, Season 2 2024 is truly a landmark build for the service. To help set expectations, it is important to understand that the Rain in iRacing does not operate like what sim racers and racing gamers have experienced in racing games and simcade racing titles. This is Rain done the iRacing way, a true-to-life dynamic simulation of the multitude of physical and environmental factors experienced in racing in the rain and how water interacts with both the racetrack and the tires of your race car. Racing in the rain can be counterintuitive at first, and successfully navigating a wet race will involve unlearning habits you might have in the dry. Although racetracks may appear smooth to your eye, asphalt has roughness and texture, with peaks and valleys. Over time, the peaks can become worn down and polished through repeated traffic. In the dry, this isn't particularly consequential, and race cars are able to navigate both polished and unpolished areas effectively, allowing a racing line that suits their driving style. In the wet, however, the relationship between polished and unpolished areas of the track becomes highly consequential. As rain begins to cover a surface, the areas of the tracks that still have rough asperities are able to accommodate the water better because it will first settle in those low valleys before it fills in and becomes a slippery film. That slippery film on the surface is what can cause the tire to lose purchase and hydroplane. However, the high traffic racing line will have had its asperities worn down and there is less room for water to hide from the surface of the tire. The end result is that the typical racing line becomes slicker sooner than the rest of the track, and racers need to seek areas offline to find grip for their tires. With the release of Rain, we recommend that iRacers first dip their toe in with a test session or with AI before diving into an online race. There are a lot of really cool ways you can configure the weather, ranging from the fully dynamic real-world based forecasted weather, the always the same static weather for practice in certain types of competition, and timeline weather, which puts the power of Jupiter in your hands with a fully customizable keyframe by keyframe experience. We'll also have some great Week 13 series that will leverage weather and let you have an unranked, low-stakes way to get familiar and have fun. Many have been wondering how it will be deployed across the service. Foundationally, Tempest will be deployed across every series on the service. However, that does not mean that it will be raining in every series across the service. It will not. Rain will be enabled by our series admins on a series-by-series basis based on whether the cars support the feature and whether it's appropriate for the level of competition. Additionally, to get everyone an opportunity to become familiar with the system, possibility of rain will only be enabled in select weeks. While we have a couple of series where rain is probable, for most series where rain is enabled, whether or not it actually rains will depend on the forecast system. This system is dynamic and tied to historical weather at our many racetracks around the world. Competitors will want to track the forecast which will be visible, but should know that it's just a forecast. And we all know how Mother Nature has a mind of its own. You may go into a race that has a high chance of rain with dark clouds looming on the horizon. You'll see them, and you'll find that the rain never materializes. Or you may enter a race where the chance of rain is relatively low, but winds start to blow in a certain way, and you find yourself facing a sudden storm. The longer the race, the greater the uncertainty, so endurance racers will need to be well aware of their environment. Fortunately, you won't be facing this adversity alone. You'll be backed up by the built-in iRacing spotter and crew chief who will keep you apprised of the upcoming changes in the weather and make sure you don't choose the wrong tires to start the race. Or, if you like, have your friend or teammate join as a spotter and they can keep an eye on that forecast, the weather radar, and what your competitors are doing. What your competitors are doing will certainly become important, as rain will introduce a new strategic dimension to racing and iRacing, where racers will need to make critical decisions about whether and when to change tires and hope their decisions are right, all while their competitors are going through a similar strategical calculus. Our day one list of rain-supported cars will now include our 11-car field of endurance cars, so the GT3, GTP, and LMP2, plus the Ray FF1600, Toyota GR86, and the FIA F4. Additional cars will be added over time through patches and builds as we work to greatly expand support over the coming months. Graphically supporting Rain has been a significant undertaking requiring multiple artists, our graphics and rendering team, and close collaboration with the physics engineers. Over the last several weeks, all of our various graphical features have come together nicely and things are looking quite real. It's worth noting that this is all physically driven, including the wetness of the track and the puddles, the water that's vacuumed up off the track by the aerodynamics of the cars, and the water flung through the air by the tires. Not only does that have significant advantages when it comes to the actual driving, but the wet track will look different from what some have seen in other racing titles that have canned puddles where the look is entirely shader driven. We've spent a lot of time here on Tempest, but there's a lot more to this build, so let's run through it together. To begin with, the content. For tracks, we will once again be returning to Italy in back-to-back builds with the release of Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli. Misano is situated in a beautiful location, just a stone's throw away from the Adriatic Sea and flanked by a picturesque town. To build these surroundings, our technical artists had to innovate and develop new tools and processes to create these performance-focused vistas. iRacing will visit Portugal for the first time with the addition of Algarve International Circuit, known to many as Portimao. Algarve is a recent F1 track that's a blast to drive with significant elevation changes and a great combination of both slow and fast turns. Dirt fans will enjoy the addition of Millbridge Speedway in Salisbury, North Carolina. Millbridge is a special facility that should offer dirt fans a new experience, our first dedicated quarter-mile dirt oval. We also have a handful of exciting new race car additions. Last season we were excited to add the Super Formula SF23, which has been received extremely well on the service. In March, we will keep up this momentum with the addition of the Super Formula Lights race car. In the real world, variants of this car are raced both in Super Formula Lights and the Euro Formula Open Championship. In iRacing, this car will be positioned at the sea level. It's been some time since we've added a new dirt car, and we are really excited about this latest addition. The Dirt Micro Sprint will join the service and is well suited to some of our smaller dirt ovals. The car is a blast to drive, a great way to learn dirt racing, and will have its own rookie series. It will also be provided to all iRacers free. On the pavement side of oval racing, we are excited about our partnership with SRX and the addition of this great race car. This car will be positioned at the D level and has both pavement and dirt tracks on its schedule. We always do our best to keep our NASCAR fleet up to date with the latest yearly real-world updates, as well as any available improvements made to our physics modeling. It's always tricky because we tend to get the data from NASCAR fairly close to the start of the racing season. A few weeks ago, we released updates to the 3 Cup car graphical models. Additionally, the trucks have been the subject of extensive aerodynamics analysis and should see a significant update in June. IndyCar will see similar improvements. We will be updating the Dallara IR18 with modifications to the car model to bring it up to date with the 2024 season car. Season 2 will include the first significant update to our license structure in some time. This change will involve the road license being split into 2 road racing disciplines, open wheel in sports car. We expect this change will help address a long-standing issue with competition. Many racers have great competency in sports cars or in open wheelers, but not an equal level of proficiency in both. However, with the road license only tracking one iRating, participation in a race in your less proficient category would match you up in races where it's a struggle for you to be competitive. With the license now split into two different categories, you will independently build your road racing career in a way that results in more balanced competition. On day one of the split, your iRating in both categories will be the same as your current road license. From that point on, they will each track independently. It will take a little bit of time, but soon enough your iRating will find its proper place in both categories as you participate in more and more races. One particular update that we're excited about and is long overdue, an improved initial experience for new iRacers. iRacing is a challenging product to get into, not only when it comes to the simulation itself, but also in regards to new users understanding what is expected of them. Through the use of interactive UI systems and our incredible AI, the new Racer Experience feature will walk future iRacers through these crucial first steps, where they'll be asked to choose their initial racing discipline, then shown how to configure their controls, and ultimately guided through introductory AI-based driving and racing scenarios. If veteran iRacers would like to give it a try, they are welcome to. To do so, just click on the settings in the lower left corner of the UI and toggle on Show New Racer Onboarding. Our web and design teams have been busy on many projects, as always, and soon we will see the beginnings of what will ultimately be a full overhaul of the UI launcher. With this first change, the UI will see the addition of a new wrapper that breaks navigation down into larger categories for ease of use, as well as a new look and feel for the licenses. We will also be incrementally moving away from a modal-based UI, and by modal, I mean the pop-ups that are currently central to navigating the UI, to a UI that is more layered and has centers and hubs for our various sections. iRacers have access to our always improving product, continuously added new features, and an ever-expanding portfolio of awesome racing content. We also provide a great package of included content. With Season 2, this offering will be strengthened further, with 4 of our racetracks being moved over to our included tier of content. These tracks are Motorsport Arena Oschersleben, Snetterton Circuit, Circuit de Lebanon, and Winton Motor Raceway. 3D curbs debuted last season, and we've been really pleased with the results and how they can transform a track. In March, we will have 3D curbs included with all new tracks, and we have also started to go through our catalog of existing tracks to chip away at our library and add this new feature. Sebring and Fuji will have support added, which could give the upcoming Sebring 12 hours an interesting new dynamic. Our most immediate future content, meaning not Season 2, includes Circuit de Navarra, which is deep into development, as well as Sachsenring Circuit. Oswego Speedway is also in pre-production and will feature both paved and dirt oval variants. Right now we are planning a trip to the UK where we'll be scanning 2 tracks as well. We are also about to get going on a long-awaited update to Spa, which we are very excited about. Additionally, we're beginning work on a project that is long overdue and will be of benefit both to the iRacing Sim and to the future NASCAR 25 console title. We were very fortunate to have NASCAR as one of our first partners. As a result, much of our early track content on the service was NASCAR content. We've done our best over the years to update this content and keep the tracks up to date, but there are many opportunities for us to improve these tracks further, both in terms of the accuracy of the facility, meaning new buildings, grandstands, etc., but also the condition of the graphics. These efforts are internally being called the NASCAR Remaster Project, and again, the results will be enjoyed both in the sim and in the NASCAR 25 title. As for race cars, we've been focusing on expanding our awesome endurance class. Our endurance series will see a significant boost in 2024 and into 2025. Our current 11 car series will soon be bursting at the seams as we climb to 12, 13, 14, 15, and more cars. We're well prepared for this with the work the optimization team has invested in improving performance, memory utilization, and multi-threading. We're also working hard on some updates to our supercars and other exciting possibilities in Australia. There's also potentially a bit of a shocker coming on the racing vehicle front, but we'll not spoil the surprise too early on that. Of course, there's a lot more going on outside of content, and we're working on a great number of future improvements and new features for the UI and the simulation. As I mentioned in past updates, we're working on a complete rebuild of our in-sim UI system. This rebuild utilizes the Noesis UI framework, which is a technology we have licensed and integrated within the sim. The key work is complete, and the data model has been designed and implemented. The remaining work does not present the same level of engineering challenge, but it does require time and effort to redo to expand, and to improve 20 years of UI screens and interfaces one by one. Expect to enjoy this long overdue new UI late this year. The Rain project provided an opportunity for our VFX team to look into new tools and methods to create and render dynamic effects, and for artists to step up and take on new challenges, learn new skills, and flourish. We intend to use this momentum to take a fresh look at existing effects like smoke and freshen them up with new ideas and more modern rendering techniques. Oval Refresh Phase 2 is really moving along, and we're looking forward to this future follow-up to the improvements we've already made in Phase 1. More information will be shared closer to the release. Thanks for your patience and sticking with me throughout this lengthy update. Really, I could go on for a great deal longer, and I haven't even touched on some major things, like our graphics and rendering team in the future of the iRacing rendering engine. We'll have plenty of opportunities soon to share a lot more, and we look forward to keeping you all up to date. For now, we're just so excited about this Season 2 build, and for you all to get your hands on Rain. This has been one of the most extensive projects in iRacing history. As iRacing developers, we all feel fortunate that this company provides us with a framework to do a project like this the iRacing way, rather than something that is kind of cool, kind of Rain-like, but never would reach this level of sophistication and ultimately this level of quality for you, the user. It was worth the wait. Thanks, and we look forward to seeing you out there on the track.